In 2009, residents of Los Angeles witnessed a puzzling sight: thousands of black plastic balls being dumped into one of the city's reservoirs. It seemed absurd. Why would a major city throw plastic balls into its drinking water supply? As strange as it looked, the move was backed by science, and it worked. That first test, involving 400,000 balls at the Ivanhoe Reservoir, saved an estimated 290 million gallons of water in just 1 year. But that was just the beginning. Between 2014 and 2015, Los Angeles escalated the experiment, releasing 96 million of these so-called shade balls into the much larger Los Angeles Reservoir. To the casual observer, it looked like a massive art installation or a prank on a grand scale. But beneath the surface of this oddity was a dual-purpose strategy addressing both water conservation and a hidden public health risk. That hidden threat was a chemical called bromate, a known carcinogen that forms when sunlight interacts with naturally occurring bromide in water, especially in the presence of chlorine and ozone. While LA's water treatment facilities kept bromate levels within safety limits, testing revealed higher concentrations forming downstream, particularly in open-air reservoirs exposed to constant sunlight. Chlorine, which is essential for controlling algae, ironically sped up bromate formation when sunlight entered the equation. The solution? Block out the sun. The city initially explored conventional fixes like installing massive floating covers or suspending shade cloths over the water. But these options came with massive price tags, over $300 million in some estimates, and significant logistical challenges. That's when Dr. Brian White, a retired biologist with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, LADWP, suggested an unconventional solution: plastic balls. These weren't ordinary plastic balls. Made from high-density polyethylene, the same material used in milk jugs, each ball was 4 inches in diameter, UV-resistant, and partially filled with water to keep them from blowing away. Their black color, infused with carbon black pigment, wasn't just for looks. It made the plastic more durable under UV exposure and effectively blocked sunlight. To test the idea, Dr. White ran a simple experiment using 3 kiddie pools, one exposed to the sun, one covered with a tarp, and one with shade balls. The balls outperformed the tarp, stopping sunlight from reaching the water and completely preventing bromate formation. That led to the 2009 pilot at Ivanhoe and eventually the full-scale rollout in 2015. The full deployment of 96 million shade balls, costing about $34.5 million, did more than just reduce bromate. It cut evaporation by up to 90%, saving millions of gallons of water each year, a critical benefit during California's severe drought. And while some worried that the black color would heat the water and worsen evaporation, the opposite happened. Floating as a dense insulating layer, the balls shielded the water from sunlight and actually kept temperatures cooler. Their design even discouraged algae growth by blocking the light algae needs to photosynthesize, reducing the need for chlorine and improving overall water quality. The impact rippled beyond California. Turkey, battling water loss from open reservoirs, adopted a similar system using gray balls to reduce evaporation and deter birds. Countries like Spain, Jordan, and Morocco began exploring the technology for use in arid climates. But not everyone is sold. Critics point out that producing the balls required nearly 2.9 million cubic meters of water, while they had saved about 1.7 million cubic meters by early 2017. That means it would take over 2 years just to break even on water savings, a tough sell during extreme droughts. There's also concern about the environmental risks of introducing millions of plastic objects into drinking water systems, especially in countries without strict safety standards. Still, the benefits are hard to ignore. Shade balls provided a cheap, scalable, and surprisingly effective solution to multiple problems. They reduced water loss, lowered chemical risks, improved water clarity, and cost a fraction of traditional infrastructure. They may look like toys floating on a reservoir, but their impact is anything but trivial. In a world where water is growing scarcer and environmental solutions more urgent, shade balls represent one of the most creative and practical innovations in modern urban engineering. While the use of shade balls in LA is a unique example of large-scale, low-tech innovation, there are several similar unconventional engineering solutions or odd-looking interventions around the world that may not deal with water specifically, but follow the same spirit: simple ideas solving complex problems in unexpected ways. The Netherlands' floating solar farms. In a country where land is limited and water bodies are abundant, the Netherlands has pioneered an innovative solution to address both renewable energy demands and environmental concerns: floating solar farms. These are large-scale installations of solar panels that float on the surfaces of lakes, reservoirs, and even flooded sandpits. The concept is as clever as it is efficient. By installing solar panels on water instead of land, the Dutch avoid competing with agricultural and urban land use. But these floating arrays do more than just produce clean electricity. Like the shade balls used in Los Angeles, they offer environmental benefits to the water bodies beneath them. The panels help reduce evaporation by shielding the water from direct sunlight, an especially important feature during hot and dry summers. Additionally, they limit the growth of algae by cutting down on sunlight penetration, improving water quality in the process. Many of these farms are equipped with tracking systems that allow the panels to tilt and follow the sun, maximizing energy output. The cooling effect of the water also boosts the panel's efficiency compared to traditional land-based systems. In essence, these floating solar farms represent a dual-purpose approach to sustainability, producing clean energy while protecting precious water resources. It's a concept that mirrors the multifunctional spirit behind LA's Shadeball project, combining environmental protection with technological innovation. Japan's giant seawalls. In the aftermath of the devastating 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, which claimed thousands of lives and caused widespread destruction, Japan undertook one of the most ambitious coastal defense projects in the world: the construction of massive concrete seawalls. These barriers now line much of Japan's northeastern coastline, with some towering up to 40 feet, about 12 meters, high and stretching for miles. The primary purpose of these imposing structures is clear: to act as a first line of defense against future tsunamis. Designed to absorb and deflect the immense force of incoming waves, the walls aim to prevent the kind of inland flooding that overwhelmed towns and cities during the 2011 disaster. Engineers incorporated lessons from the past, using stronger materials and more robust designs to ensure the walls could withstand both the force and unpredictability of major tsunamis. However, the seawalls are not without controversy. In many towns, they have significantly altered the natural landscape, cutting off once picturesque ocean views and the traditional connection between coastal communities and the sea. Critics argue that the towering concrete barriers make towns feel confined, even bunker-like, and may give residents a false sense of security if not paired with evacuation plans and early warning systems. Still, for many communities, the seawalls are a symbol of resilience, a physical reminder of what was lost, and a determined effort to protect what remains. Much like the shade balls in Los Angeles or floating solar farms in the Netherlands, they represent a bold, engineered solution to a problem deeply rooted in nature: China's green carpet to fight desertification. In the arid regions bordering the vast Gobi Desert, China has launched a surprisingly simple yet remarkably effective solution to combat one of its most pressing environmental threats: desertification. Known informally as the green carpet, this method involves laying massive straw grids directly onto the sand, forming a crisscrossed pattern that resembles a checkerboard stretching across the dunes. Each square, typically 1 meter by 1 meter, acts as a windbreak, trapping moisture and preventing sand from being blown away. This stabilizes the dunes and creates a more hospitable microenvironment for vegetation to take root. Over time, hardy plants like drought-resistant grasses and shrubs are introduced within these grids, gradually transforming lifeless sand into living soil. This low-tech approach may seem counterintuitive in an age of high-tech climate solutions, but its effectiveness has been well documented. The straw is often sourced from local agricultural waste, making the project sustainable and cost-efficient. More importantly, it addresses the core problem at its source, by stabilizing the sand before it can spread further and by slowly reversing the process of desert expansion. The Green Carpet is part of China's broader initiative known as the Great Green Wall, a massive reforestation and land rehabilitation project aimed at halting the march of the Gobi Desert. Like Japan's seawalls or the Netherlands' floating solar farms, this strategy is both practical and symbolic. a visible effort to push back against nature's extremes with ingenuity, persistence, and respect for the land. Anti-smog cannons in India. In the heart of Delhi, one of the world's most polluted cities, a futuristic-looking solution has emerged in the battle against toxic air: anti-smog cannons. These massive turret-like machines resemble industrial fog guns and are designed to spray ultrafine water mist into the atmosphere. Their purpose? To capture airborne pollutants like PM 2.5 particles, tiny, dangerous particles that can penetrate deep into the lungs and even enter the bloodstream. The concept behind these anti-smog cannons is simple but impactful. When the fine mist is released into the air, it binds with dust and particulate matter, causing them to settle to the ground instead of remaining suspended in the air. This helps to temporarily improve air quality, particularly in high traffic zones, construction sites, and densely populated urban neighborhoods. These machines have become increasingly visible during Delhi's infamous winter smog season, when pollution levels often soar to hazardous levels due to a combination of vehicle emissions, industrial activity, and crop stubble burning in nearby states. While the cannons are not a long-term cure for air pollution, they serve as a targeted mitigation tool, especially during emergency situations when air quality reaches critical levels. Critics argue that they treat the symptoms rather than the root causes, but supporters see them as a necessary short-term intervention in a city where residents sometimes breathe air equivalent to smoking multiple cigarettes a day. Like floating solar farms or desert straw grids, India's anti-smog cannons represent a bold visual response to an invisible but deadly threat. The Big Dig's slurry wall in Boston. Boston's Central Artery Tunnel project, famously known as the Big Dig, was one of the most complex and costly urban infrastructure projects ever undertaken in the United States. While most people remember the massive tunnels, rerouted highways, and years of traffic chaos, one of the project's quiet engineering triumphs was the use of slurry walls, a method that proved vital for digging deep in a dense historic city without causing collapses or damage to nearby buildings. The technique involves digging narrow, deep trenches into the ground and immediately filling them with a slurry made of bentonite clay and water. This thick mixture prevents the trench walls from caving in by exerting pressure against them. Once the trench is complete, a steel reinforcing cage is inserted, and concrete is pumped in from the bottom up, displacing the slurry. The result? A solid, watertight underground wall. This method might not sound dramatic, but it was revolutionary for the Big Dig. It allowed engineers to construct below Boston's existing infrastructure, including subways, sewer lines, and historic foundations, without destabilizing the ground. Traditional excavation methods would have risked cave-ins or dangerous ground shifts, especially given Boston's soft, water-saturated soil. Though invisible to the casual passerby, these slurry walls were essential to making the Big Dig feasible. Like Japan's seawalls or India's anti-smog cannons, the slurry wall is a case of infrastructure innovation that isn't flashy, but absolutely critical. It's a reminder that sometimes the most transformative engineering is the kind that no one ever sees. Albedo-enhancing white roofs in NYC. In the dense, heat-trapping landscape of New York City, a surprisingly low-tech solution has made a significant impact in the fight against rising urban temperatures: painting rooftops white. This initiative, part of NYC's Cool Roofs program, aims to combat the urban heat island effect, a phenomenon where cities become significantly warmer than surrounding rural areas due to dark, heat-absorbing surfaces like asphalt, concrete, and traditional black rooftops. The science behind it lies in albedo, a measure of how much sunlight a surface reflects. Dark roofs absorb up to 90% of the sun's energy, heating up buildings and neighborhoods. White roofs, on the other hand, reflect the majority of that solar radiation, keeping rooftop surfaces up to 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 to 22 degrees Celsius, cooler during the summer. This helps reduce the need for air conditioning, lowers energy bills, and eases the strain on the city's power grid, especially during peak demand periods. The process itself is simple. A reflective white coating is applied to building rooftops, often by teams of volunteers or workers as part of city-backed sustainability programs. There's no need for new infrastructure or costly equipment, just a few buckets of paint and some elbow grease. Beyond energy savings, white roofs also contribute to lowering citywide greenhouse gas emissions and improving public health by mitigating heat-related stress. Like China's desert straw grids or India's anti-smog cannons, New York's white roof strategy shows how small, scalable actions, rooted in basic science, can produce powerful environmental outcomes when applied on a large scale. Reflective mirrors in a Norwegian village. In the small town of Rjukan, Norway, nestled deep within a narrow valley surrounded by steep mountains, the sun disappears for nearly half the year. From late autumn to early spring, the town receives no direct sunlight, an absence that long defined daily life, impacting both mood and well-being. But in 2013, the townspeople embraced an inventive and visually striking solution: giant, sun-tracking mirrors. Mounted high on a nearby mountainside, these enormous heliostats, computer-controlled mirrors, are programmed to follow the movement of the sun across the sky. As they tilt and rotate, they reflect sunlight down into the heart of the town, specifically targeting the town square. There, residents can gather to bask in a pool of warm, natural light, even in the darkest months of winter. The mirrors don't just brighten the physical space, they lift spirits and support mental health by providing a daily dose of sunlight in an otherwise dim and cold environment. The idea was originally proposed over a century ago by a local engineer, but was only realized with the help of modern technology and funding. From a distance, the beam of sunlight illuminating a snowy square surrounded by shadows can look almost otherworldly, like something out of science fiction. Yet it's a deeply human response to a natural challenge. Like NYC's white roofs or Japan's seawalls, Rjukan's mirrors are a testament to how creative thinking and engineering can reshape our experience of the environment, even in the most unlikely of places. Mexico City's air-purifying murals. In the bustling heart of Mexico City, where traffic congestion and industrial activity contribute to serious air pollution, a creative fusion of art and science is helping clean the atmosphere, literally. Across the city, building walls have been transformed into massive, vibrant murals painted with a special type of air-purifying paint known as photocatalytic coating. At first glance, these murals might seem like just another example of bold street art, but their impact goes far beyond aesthetics. The paint contains titanium dioxide, a compound that reacts with sunlight to break down harmful pollutants like nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds in the air. This chemical reaction mimics the natural process used by plants, essentially allowing the mural to breathe and clean the air around it. One famous example is the mural Somos Aire, We Are Air, which spans hundreds of square meters and is estimated to purify as much air as a forest of several thousand trees. These artistic interventions are strategically placed in areas with high vehicle emissions or poor air quality, where their effect is most needed. While they don't replace trees or eliminate pollution at the source, these murals serve as a powerful symbol and a functional tool of urban resilience. They represent how cities can creatively address environmental challenges by blending culture, community, and cutting-edge technology. Like Norway's sun mirrors or India's anti-smog cannons, Mexico City's photocatalytic murals remind us that solutions to complex problems can be both beautiful and practical. The black balloons of Chernobyl. In the eerie aftermath of the 1986 Chernobyl nuclear disaster, the exclusion zone became a surreal and dangerous landscape, one filled with invisible radiation and a desperate scramble to contain its effects. Amid the chaos, an unusual sight drifted across the sky: large black helium balloons quietly floating over the devastated reactor site. Though they looked like something from a dystopian film, these balloons played a surprisingly important role in the cleanup effort. Engineers and scientists used these helium-filled balloons for several key purposes in the most hazardous zones. One of their main functions was to carry lightweight shielding materials, such as lead sheets or other radiation-dampening barriers, suspended in the air to help reduce direct exposure to high radiation hotspots. Essentially, they acted as mobile radiation umbrellas, shielding workers and equipment below. In other cases, the balloons served as camera platforms. Hovering above the wreckage, they carried remote-controlled cameras and sensors, capturing aerial images and radiation data without putting human lives at risk. This was especially critical in areas too contaminated or unstable for helicopters or ground-based robots, many of which had already malfunctioned due to the extreme radiation. Though their presence was temporary and relatively low-tech, the black balloons of Chernobyl stand as a haunting symbol of innovation under extreme pressure. Like Boston's slurry walls or Mexico City's air-purifying murals, they were a creative, context-specific solution, born not out of luxury, but necessity. They may have looked strange, but in a place where even air could kill, they offered a small measure of control in an uncontrollable disaster. Plastic bottle roads in India and the UK. In the ongoing fight against plastic pollution, a handful of countries have discovered a way to turn waste into a surprisingly strong solution by building roads with it. Both India and the United Kingdom have embraced an innovative method of incorporating shredded plastic waste, including bottles and packaging, into asphalt used for paving roads. The result is a road that's not only more environmentally friendly, but also more durable and cost-effective than conventional ones. The process involves cleaning and shredding plastic waste, which is then melted and mixed with hot bitumen, the binding agent in asphalt. The plastic enhances the binding properties of the bitumen, making the road surface more flexible and resistant to common issues like potholes, cracking, and water damage. These roads are especially effective in areas with heavy rainfall or extreme heat, where traditional asphalt tends to deteriorate quickly. India has led the way, with thousands of kilometers of plastic-infused roads already laid across the country. What started as a local experiment by an Indian scientist has now scaled into a nationwide effort backed by government policy. The UK has followed suit with pilot programs and road trials that show promising results in terms of longevity and environmental impact. This technique doesn't just give plastic waste a second life, it also helps reduce landfill use, lower construction costs, and cut carbon emissions. Like NYC's white roofs or China's straw grids, plastic roads are a reminder that sometimes solving big problems requires looking at waste not as trash, but as untapped potential.